Morning, everybody, and welcome to your day 4 classwork. I'm going to go through a couple of example problems to get you on your way today. And one of the most important things to remember is to build off of what you worked on yesterday, what we talked about during our class time yesterday, in that we ended up multiplying fractions by fractions and fractions by whole numbers. Today, we're going to up the ante just a little bit, and we are going to really answer this question: how can I multiply two fractions involving mixed numbers? So now we're going to put mixed numbers into the game here, okay? And as we remember from how we multiply standard fractions, the same things are going to apply. The big difference is we have to address each mixed number first. So pay attention to that as we go through these example problems. The first problem I have right here is 2 1/5 times 3. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write the problem out. I'm going to have my pencil, my paper ready to go. That's the best way to learn this material. And I have to address this mixed number. All right, so I'm going to rewrite it, and I'm going to take that mixed number. I'm going to convert it into that fraction greater than 1. And what we remember is that 5 times 2 is 10. 10 plus 1 is 11. And that 11 becomes my numerator. And as we talked about before, the denominator will stay the same. What we're going to do now is address the 3. And that 3 is a whole number. As we talked yesterday, that 3 becomes 3 over 1. And then what we're going to do is continue to multiply the same way. And I know that I can take 3 times 11, and that becomes 33. I can then take 5 times 1, and that becomes 5. So my answer here is 33/5. But we can't leave it 33/5. We're going to convert it back into a mixed number. And I know that 5 goes into 33 at least 6 times without going over. My denominator is going to stay the same, and I have 3 left over. So it's 6 3/5 is my final answer here. So one thing to just go back to is it's virtually the same as to what we did yesterday, except we now have to address that mixed number. Okay, that's really the only difference. Let's look at the second problem here. Instead of a whole number now, I have a fraction times a mixed number. I have a fraction multiplied by a mixed number. So in this case, that 3/5, it's okay right now. So I'm going to rewrite that. 3/5. Now I have this mixed number 1 2/3. I'm going to address that. I know that 3 times 1 is 3, and 3 plus 2 is 5. So I have 5/3. So my new problem is 3/5 times 5/3. You notice I rewrote it this way because this side of the equal sign is the same value as this side of the equal sign. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and solve. 3 times 5 is 15, and 5 times 3 is 15. Now you know that when the numerator and denominator are exactly the same, that answer is going to give you 1. So your final answer will be 1. Let's go to the third example here. All right. Again, it is a mixed number times a fraction. It's similar to what we did in problem 2, except now the mixed number comes first. So I'll address that first. So I have to convert that into a fraction greater than 1. 8 times 4 is 32. 32 plus 3 is 35. So now I have 35/8. I'm going to multiply that 35/8 times 1/2. Right? My next step is to go ahead and do 35 times 1. And I know that answer is going to be 35. My denominator will be multiplying these two denominators together, 8 times 2, and that's going to give me 16. You're going to get an oddball fraction like this, 35/16. You got to convert that back into a mixed number. All right. So In order to make that happen, we say, how many 16s, how many groups of 16 can I fit into 35? Because it's just like you're answering the division question, 35 divided by 16, okay? But in this case, I know my 16 tables pretty well, but I know that 2 groups of 16 is 32, and that doesn't go over. So I'll make my whole number 2. I'll make my denominator 16. And if I can't remember what the remainder is, I'll just count up. I know 16 times 2 is 32. And how many more does it take me to get to 35? And in that case, it's 3. So my final answer for this problem is 2 and 3/16. Moving on to the fourth one. This is where we up the ante. Now I have 2 mixed numbers that I have to deal with. I have 2 and 3/5 multiplied by 1 and 2/3. But again, you don't have to worry about them. You just have to address them because the multiplication process is exactly the same. So I'm going to do 2 and 3/5. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 plus 3 is 13. And my denominator stays the same. I'm going to multiply that by 1 and 2/3, but I have to convert 1 and 2/3. So in that case, 3 times 1 is 3. 3 plus 2 is 5. So I have 5/3, right? And this is where you're going to need that fact table, that calculator. That's going to be a big help, a big asset for you moving forward, especially when you get to multiplying 13 times 5. And don't be afraid to take these 2 numbers and just do some scratch paper down here. 13 times 5, that's 15, 65. All right. Now, 65 would become my numerator. My denominator is going to be 15. So it's another one of these really top-heavy fractions. But you should know your 15s pretty well. And if you're stuck, I'm going to think, how many 15s can I fit into 65? But I know that that 6 is worth 60. So I know that 15 times 4 is 60. So I can definitely get 4 of them in there. So that's going to be my whole number. My denominator, that will stay the same. Okay. It'll be 15. And then, 15 times 4 is 60, because I knew that from up here. That's why you write the math down, so you can always refer right back to it. And I know that I have 5 left over. But I want you to look carefully and make sense of this answer, because it's not our final answer. We can reduce that fraction. We can reduce 5/15. The largest number that I can divide into both of them is 5. And I know that 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 15 divided by 5 is 3. So my final answer for this problem is 4 1/3. Just because there are a lot of steps doesn't make it that much more difficult. The math here is not difficult. It's taking care of all the parts of the problem that you're supposed to take care of. It's all that attention to detail. So much of this 6th grade math this year that we've talked about, it's not the math itself, the number sense itself is not challenging. It's keeping track of all of the steps and working slowly, okay? So you'll have 5 problems like this in your classwork. Join me in class, ask me questions, join me in the office hours. I'd be more than happy to go over all these problems with you. Any other questions? Send me a message, send me an email. Look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow. Take care.